Hey guys, this is Sandeep from Revertless and welcome to our review of the Dell G3 3500. Now before we get this started, please do make sure to hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications to avoid missing any videos from us in the future. Now let's begin. So let's start by talking about the various variants and the config that we are testing. Our test unit comes with a 10th generation Intel Core i5 10300H quad-core chipset, but you can also get it with an i7 10750H hexa-core chipset. Ours also has a NVIDIA 1650 GPU, while you can also opt for the 1650 Ti GPU, and both of them come with 4GB of VRAM. There's also options of 8 or 16GB of RAM, of which we have the former. We have a 256GB PCIe SSD and a 1TB hard disk, while you can also get it with a 512GB PCIe SSD if you go for the higher end option. In terms of design, the Dell G3 is quite understated. The matte black outer lid has just two lines and a chromatic looking Dell logo to break the monotonous design. Now while Dell mentions that this is a gaming laptop, albeit an entry category one, the aesthetic surely doesn't scream the same as some other gaming laptops that we're used to testing. Despite using mostly plastic materials, the build quality is actually pretty solid and we didn't face any issue of creaks or flexing even on the keyboard deck for example, but that is made of metal. Funnily enough, the flashiest portion of the Dell G3 is the bottom, where you have the G3 model initials written in glossy bold, surrounded by a striped design and larger blue pads to prevent the laptop from sliding about. You also find the dual speakers at the bottom on either side, which get fairly loud and have good quality as well, but they lack bass. There just isn't sufficient punch when it comes to the bass. Now the keyboard is a 10 key one which has good feedback and key travel, but I find the spacing to be a bit cramped and the keys to be on the smaller side. I wish they went for a 10 keyless design which would have allowed more spacing and larger keys to be put in. Now the backlighting is a nice cool blue and is adjustable in two levels of brightness. Backlighting is evenly spread out across the keys, and the keyboard is also spill resistant by the way, which is great considering how I just spilled Coke all over my desktop keyboard a few days ago, so accidents can happen to anyone and this has you covered. The overall footprint of the G3 is pretty big, and perhaps I feel even more so as I had been testing a few 14 and 13 inch ultrabooks prior to this. Now it weighs in at 2.34 kilograms and measures 21mm at its thickest point, which makes it a thick boy, but it still fits perfectly well in any laptop backpack. The touchpad is a plastic one that I wouldn't prefer using. I mostly resorted to a mouse since it wasn't very good even to use for editing. For casual browsing and regular use it should be fine though, and the clicks are satisfying enough. The display is good. It's a 15.6 inch 1080p panel from LG with 60Hz of refresh rate. The display is good in terms of the panel quality and the overall visual appeal. It has good colors and sharpness, and I would have liked to see smaller bezels, especially at the chin where the Dell logo rests, but this is what we get. Something similar to a top bezel where the camera is would have been better, and the webcam by the way is decent. Has noise and detailing is average but is sufficient for video calls, and the microphone is pretty good. The hinge by the way is solid and display doesn't wobble even when typing on the lap, and I like how the edges of the upper lid curve a bit after the hinge, and this looks quite nice. There are 120Hz models by the way which is available now, and that would be better suited for gamers, and the brightness of this panel is also good, and so is the outdoor visibility. The SSD posted good read and write speeds close to 2300 megabytes per second and over 1200 megabytes per second respectively. It's an NVMe SSD and the model name and the manufacturer are shown on screen. The hard disk drive is from Western Digital and the speeds are okayish. It scored just over 130 megabytes per second for read and over 120 megabytes per second for write, as it is a 5400 RPM drive. Now we did do some editing on DaVinci Resolve and it performed fairly well for a device in this price segment, but one thing I didn't like was the fact that the fan is very loud and kicks in pretty fast as well. Almost any time you're editing something or gaming, the fans need to be turned on and it is quite audible. Coming to benchmarks, it scored 1150 on single core Geekbench and 4247 on multi-core. On Cinebench R15 it posted a score of 819 for the CPU test, and the OpenGL test the GPU managed to do 115 FPS. If you're getting the 120Hz screen, then a safer bet would be to get the 1650 Ti version. As for the port situation, you get two USB Type-A slots on the right, an audio jack, a Kensington lock, and a boon for creators in the form of a full-size SD card slot. On the left you get the power socket, an Ethernet port, an HDMI port, and another Type-A port. It would have been nice to get one Type-C port, but this is not a deal breaker. But what's more of an issue is that you get two USB Type-A 2.0 ports and just one USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A port. Battery life wise, I got around 7 to 8 hours with regular use, while if you're gaming or editing, your battery life will reduce by around 50 to 60%, give or take, depending on how hungry the apps or games are. Now it charges over Dell proprietary cable which glows in blue when charging, just like the blue backlight on the keyboard. At the asking price of Rs 72,990 on Amazon currently, I'm not sure if I can say that this is one laptop that you can safely go for. I am reviewing it towards the fag end of the product cycle, so that is one factor as well, but there are other options that I would suggest you go for that gives you better bang for the buck. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you again in the next one.